Well, hello there, folks, and a very warm welcome as usual back to What's for Tea and our wee video recipe for this week. And I do hope that I find you very well indeed. And would you look at these wee crackers? These were lovely, very easy to make as well. So these are Jammy Dodgers, and it's basically a sweet biscuit filled with jam. So let me go and show you how I made these. I'll put all the ingredients on the screen as we go, and you will also find them underneath the video. So we're starting off with some room temperature unsalted butter. I am going to use my stand mix just because it makes it so much easier. To this, I'm going to add some white sugar. I am using caster sugar, but you can use ordinary white granulated sugar if you don't have any caster sugar. So you want to get your mixer on and you want to beat these together really well for about 5 minutes, and they'll go really pale and fluffy once they are properly creamed together. You might have to stop halfway just to scrape down your bowl just to make sure everything is off the bottom and nicely mixed. I like to do this anyway just to make sure, and I quite like doing it anyway. So just scrape your bowl down and get everything back in to the bottom of your bowl, and we're just going to give this another couple of minutes. Like I said, it will go nice and pale and fluffy, much lighter than when you first started. I don't know the reason for that, but it always happens, and that's when you know you're ready to move on. So it should be looking something like this. And then all we're going to do now is give it another wee scrape down and add an egg. I am going to use a large egg. If you don't have any large eggs, you can use a couple of small eggs. You can just look up, the typical measurements or weights online if you're not sure. But this is one large egg. Like I said, I'm just going to scrape the bowl down again just to protect the egg a wee bit as it's beating away. And don't worry if when you put your mixer on it starts to look like scrambled egg. It will look like that for a few seconds until it's properly mixed into your flour and butter, and this will only take you about 30 to 40 seconds. I'm just going to keep my mixer going and gradually add my flour. You don't want to just dump all of this in. I like to add this in spoonfuls just until it's properly mixed through, and it does give you a better consistency. Well, I've found anyway. So just keep adding until you get no flour left. This is just plain or all-purpose flour, and you'll end up with a nice stiff biscuit dough just like this. It shouldn't be overly sticky or sticking to your hands. You should be able to pick this up and it should be quite easy to work with. So just grab your paddle, make sure you get all of your mixture off of your paddle. You can do this by hand, but your stand mix just makes it so much easier. You just want to gather all of this into a nice smooth bowl. You don't need to knead it or anything, you just want to bring everything together really easy, and it'll go nice and smooth just like this. Now we will have to refrigerate this a couple of times, so I'm going to pop this into some cling film and then just flatten it down with a rolling pin. If you flatten it down nice and flat with a rolling pin before you pop it into the fridge, it will chill much quicker than if you leave it in this bowl. So this is just what I like to do. Then just cover it up with the rest of your cling film, and I just like to slip a baking tray underneath this just to make it easy to go over to the fridge. So yeah, just slip a baking tray underneath and pop it into the fridge, and you want to give this about half an hour, longer if you can, but half an hour will do. And then you want to flour your work surface. This is the cookie cutter that I used here, but you don't have to use one of these, if you don't have one. This came in a set of 4, which I will leave linked down below just in case you want to go and have a look. But you can easily use a standard cookie cutter in any wee kind of shapes that you've got just to get the centre out of your biscuit. You can get quite creative with these, but I'm going to use that wee cookie cutter just because I've got it. Like I said, it does come in a set of 4, and I will leave that link down below. There's a custard cream, this Jammy Dodger, there's a bourbon, and there's also an iced party ring, set of 4. So like I said, I will leave them linked underneath. So you just want to get your biscuit dough out of your fridge, pop it onto your surface and stamp out your biscuits, whether you're using this or whether you're using a standard cookie cutter. But I would use the fluted side of your cookie cutter because it makes the edges nice and pretty. I am going to use half of my mix just because I don't need 24 biscuits today, but I'll use that for something else. And then this cookie cutter comes with a wee heart attachment just to get the middle out of your biscuit, which makes it really, really easy. So I'm going to take the middle out of half of these biscuits to give me a top and a bottom, and we're going to refrigerate this again just to make sure we keep as much of that impression as possible, because if you pop this into the oven you will completely lose any of the design on the top. So by chilling them first, you stand a better chance of keeping hold of some of that design. So chill these for half an hour and then pop them into the oven for between 10 and 15 minutes on quite a low temperature. You don't want too much colour on these because typically these are quite pale. So I've separated my tops from my bottoms, and I'm going to put them both into the oven on 2 different shelves and just swap them through halfway, just so that they're the same kind of colour. So yeah, not too much colour. When they're starting to tinge on the edge like this, you don't want them going any further than this, because you do want them quite pale, like I said, but these are fully cooked. They're not doughy in any way. It's just the type of biscuit mix that it is. And this is your bottoms here. You want to pop these onto a wire tray just to cool down for about 10 to 15 minutes, so you're not putting your hot jam onto really hot biscuits, or it may just sort of seep into your biscuit, which you don't want. Then you just want to pair up your biscuits, your tops and your bottoms as well as you can. They don't have to be perfect. They're just going to taste exactly the same no matter what they look like. So yeah, I was quite happy with these, and this is the jam that I am using here, just some seedless raspberry jam. And you don't want to put too much jam in these because you don't want it all soaking out the sides. You do want to have them a wee bit more proud in the middle so that your jam comes up through that heart and gives you that sort of domed look. So I was really happy with these. So just go ahead and do that for all of your biscuits. You could use buttercream as well if you don't want to use the jam, or you can change the type of jam that you're using, or even marmalade. It's entirely up to you. You can cover these in icing and sprinkles and go crazy with them, but I was trying to keep these traditional, or as traditional as possible. And like I said, I was really happy with these, and they're really tasty. These are better, in my opinion, the next day because they are quite a firm biscuit, but if you leave them to the next day, they do soften up ever so slightly. And if you've tried an Empire biscuit, this is my Empire biscuit mix, so they taste exactly the same as my Empire biscuits minus the icing. So do let me know if you're planning on giving those ones a go. Like I said, you will get double the amount of biscuits out of this recipe, but I didn't want to do them all today, so you will get a lot more than I got there. So well worth the effort, in my opinion. And a huge thank you as usual to the supporters of the channel over on my Patreon page, to the channel members here on YouTube as well, for you all for leaving your lovely comments, and for those that share the videos as well, those that have bought me a coffee, and those that have left me a super thanks donation. And I will catch up with you during the week for another wee video or 3 back here on What's for Tea. So until you choose to join me again, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you off soon. Take care. Bye now.